Hi, Mary. Great to see you. How are you?
Hi, Charlie. I'm very fine, thank you, and it's very good to see you again. I know we talked about a month ago in Spain when I visited Spain, and it's very good to see you here again.
It's good to see you. There's an awful lot going on right now. And for those people that have been following us for a while, what I was talking about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, is now happening in plain sight. And so for me, it makes me a lot happier that I can actually point to things that are happening.
Yeah.
There is also right now, as there has been on this journey, a lot of complete and utter lunacy that's going on. A lot of distractions, whether it be the balloons flying over America.
The Chinese balloons.
Oh, you can't. Some of this stuff you cannot make up. And yet people fall for it. There was one humorous thing that somebody sent me the other day, or yesterday, where a guy was driving, following this balloon for 200 miles, and then realized it wasn't a balloon, it was bird shit on his window. That just about sums it up. I mean, some of this stuff, the world, if they believe, for the people that are out there that believe that a balloon could be released from China and then travel over Canada, and then over to America, but it didn't get shot down until it left the coast of America. If you believe that, you seriously need to check in to make sure you've got one brain cell left, because I would suggest you probably haven't.
Yeah, I know.
If you fall for that, and if you think about it, the last time that those balloons were actually used for proper surveillance was probably 35 years ago. They use drones now that you can't see, that are so small. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the reality is first of all, there's no way it would be China or Russia. My gut feeling is it's the cabal, the deep state, trying to see if they can get away with surveilling, because everything they do in America, from the corrupt side, everything they do, not half of what they do, everything they do, they go, it's China or Russia. That's all. And they think they'll get away with it. Well, not anymore. There's enough of us that have woken up to realize that when they say Russian disinformation and Chinese disinformation, it's not. It's Democrat bullshit.
It is. It is.
In very simple language.
Yeah. Yeah. I like simple language.
Exactly. So we're in a real fun time right now. And I said to my wife only this morning, because one of the questions I get asked a lot is, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen?
Yeah.
And because I know it's going to happen, I don't know when. But I've given up worrying about when, because all it does is stress you out. So accept the fact that God wins, accept that fact. Once you accept that fact that God wins, enjoy the journey. Yeah. Yes, it's a bumpy road.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you're going to see some things you didn't want to see, and some of them are pretty disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the Grammys and all that stuff, disgusting. There's some disgusting stuff out there.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see it, because if you don't see it, you'd never believe it.
No. It is a bumpy ride, and I'm not happy all the time with it, because we all go, like the flow. We've had it, we're fed up with it. It takes too long, but of course it makes sense why it takes so long, because you can only do one thing one time and in a good way. So I do understand it, but it's it can be funny if you know what we know and you look at it and that you think, my goodness, a balloon, or whatever they come up with. Yeah, I have some questions. As you know, I am a psychic medium. I have my practice at home, and I work with frequency devices as well, small ones, portable frequency devices, to help people heal faster, all kinds of ways, beautiful results. And for me, it's like a little medbed. Working with frequency devices. Do you have any information about the medbeds? I know everybody's asking about it for years now. I know that more than a year ago, you said there's one already in the Netherlands, but none of them are working, at least not.
No, they're working, but not available.
Not available for us. No,
not available. And there's a very simple reason, because at the moment the cabal needs to be taken out before they can release them.
Yeah.
Certain things that have to be done first, to do with big pharma, big tech, all of this has to be dealt with first. There is a correct procedure. The one thing that's not happening is they're not taking any risks. This is our last chance for humanity.
Yeah.
And for those people that say, well, I need it now because otherwise this person's going to die. This is because we're all scared of death.
Yeah.
The reality is if God takes you home, your work has been complete. For some reason, he's left Charlie Ward here, which suggests that my work is not yet complete.
No, we're not ready
And also,
yet.
there's an awful lot of people out there, forget the med beds, that need a new meat suit. So you need to work on your soul.
Yeah.
Because when your soul comes back, maybe you'll get the body you desired all your life without the wrinkles.
Without the wrinkles, yeah.
The med beds will be wonderful things. And they're incredibly simple because they work on two things, frequency and stem cell technology.
Yeah.
And combined, this goes back 150 years. They were created, invented by Nikola Tesla, but they were hidden.
Yeah, they were hidden.
Big pharma and big tech made sure they couldn't come out. And this is why they can't come out until they're dealt with.
Yeah.
So there is a protocol, there is a process, but don't panic. If God decides that you need a new meat suit rather than a med bed, work on your soul so that when your soul comes back, it comes back ready for a better life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it reminds me of a couple of months ago, I had a very special spiritual session, and I got downloads. And what I saw was a very large group of people walking down a road away from me. I was the observer, and they were walking away from me. They were all dressed in white, very serene. And what they told me was that about 1 billion people were not going to make it, are not able to, they cannot be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And which means that if they die, when they die, well, as you said, people are afraid of dying. That's. I think it's common. I think it makes sense. If you don't know anything about the afterlife, or you don't know anything about your soul, and you only think of yourself as a human being from flesh and blood, and that's it, because that's not it. We're all frequency. Everything is frequency, vibration, as Tesla said. It all is. And once you understand that, you look so much different at life. Mm-hmm. It's so different. Even when I see dogs or cats or whatever animal, I see the soul. Mm-hmm. Also have a soul, but a tree has a soul. Everything has a soul. Everything is how do I explain that? It's energy, it's frequency, and we're here.
The only people that should be scared of death are people who haven't connected to their soul within. Because if you've connected to God, then you have nothing to fear. Mm-hmm. If you haven't, you have everything to fear.
Yeah,
and you'll land up in hell, and that is because of the fact that you haven't done the work on yourself.
It's your own hell.
And there's actually nothing between heaven and hell. It's one or t'other. It's black or white, and it's your choice.
It is.
And also, I will point out, as much as it's your choice, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. God gave his son for forgiveness. So as long as you ask forgiveness from God, God can give you forgiveness. Only God. I can't. Nobody else can. God can. Mm-hmm. But it's your job to ask for it, not mine, not your mates. No. It's a matter, and you don't need to go to church to do it. You can do it in your own home. You can speak to God because God lives within you.
Go within. It's
exactly.
Yeah, and that's also what I teach my clients, to make them understand who they really are, mm-hmm. and how they can, as Dolores Cannon always used to say, manipulate energy, mm-hmm. but not manipulate for the better, for good purpose. And we are so much more than we think we are. Mm-hmm. But you have to go within, mm-hmm. and forget the plastic fantastic outside. Just go within and understand that you're a soul, understand that you are frequency. And I honestly believe that if people, even from maybe tomorrow, they start going within, not overthink the problems, but feel what does it do with me, they can raise their frequency, and it will be easier for them to see what's going on in the world. For all the people who say, yeah, but you have to be afraid of that, and you wear a mask, and you have to take the jab or whatever, because they're afraid of death, and they can't see everything. Mm-hmm. That's what I teach my clients, to see it at a broader perspective. Yeah. Is there anything that you have any news you want to share with the Dutch?
Well, with the Dutch, we're in a very fascinating phase. I get a lot of questions from the Dutch audience that I have about they've got Zims, Dinar, and Dong. They've bought them in the past and they've sat on them, and they're all waiting for the dates for the redemption centres.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because I had a guy called Dave, XRP Lion, on my show yesterday, who was talking about that in detail. And he will be on my show again tomorrow, because these redemption centres are already set up.
Okay.
They're ready to go, but they're not what you think they are. It's not so much a question of going in there and getting an exchange rate. It's more to do with you, because there is off-planet compliance.
Wow.
And it's about the redemption of your soul as much as the redemption of your money.
And how do I see that? How are they going to do that?
Well, everybody will be notified. And there was one thing that caused a bit of a hoo-ha, is that you will have an appointment time that you have to be there. And if you're there 10 minutes before, they won't see you. They'll simply send you away. So you have to be there on time. And so a lot of people said to me, well, what happens if I'm late? What happens if this? What happens if that? That's karma. If you're on the right frequency, you'll be there at the right time. If you're not on the right frequency, you'll have a road accident on the way, or something will stop you getting there, or you'll turn up late, or you'll turn up early.
Yeah.
This is all to do with your frequency. So it will actually, your frequency will stop you being there at the right time. And
but that's how frequency works.
Of course it is.
All the time. Always. It always works like that. Yeah.
And this is why it's important to work on what's within you.
Absolutely.
Rather than being dependent on what's outside of you.
Yes.
And if
for the people watching and the people that have some, let's say, Iraqi dinar, how do they get contacted if there are redemption centers?
Well, everybody that's got them will be notified. Everybody, whether you've registered them anywhere or not. I will be responsible, obviously, for all of my insiders and my audience. Mm-hmm. And so will Simon Parks, and so will everybody else, and so will Wim Vischer over in Holland, and the team, and Peter, and all the rest of them. We'll all be responsible for getting the message out as to when the redemption centres will be ready, and then people will apply for an appointment individually. They'll each apply for an appointment. And then when you go for your appointment, just make sure you're there when you're supposed to be there. It's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up with a very, very strict father on timekeeping. And his attitude is, if you're on time, you're late. Always get there beforehand and be ready. Mm-hmm. So even if you get there an hour before, don't go to the door. Mm-hmm. Wait.
Just wait
until the time you're supposed to be there. No. I grew up with that mentality. And there are a lot of people that I know, I've got friends who will be late for their own funeral because they're just always late. Everything they do, they're late. And every single time we're going to an event where we're meeting up with them, I say to my wife before we leave, I wonder what their excuse will be today. Mm. They will be late. And it's always the dog or somebody called or business or one thing or another. The other thing that was interesting, what you were saying earlier about having a dream or having a vision or having a download, having a down. My wife had a download the other day, and she saw a group of people, a group of our friends that were together. And there was one member that was not with us, so it was sat outside. And that's interesting because I'm not going to comment who it was. It's not about that. But she saw it very, very clearly, like you saw what you saw. She saw a group of people together in white, and this other person was sat outside the circle in darkness. And we will all start to see these sort of things. And sometimes we won't admit it to other people that we've seen it because we feel embarrassed. Yeah. Because we haven't experienced downloads or God talking to us or whatever. We haven't experienced it before. The first time you do experience it, it's a bit unnerving. Of course it is. I get that. The first time God talks to you, it's a bit unnerving. You're like, really?
It's up.
So exactly. But one thing it does when you realize it's God talking to you, it makes you realize you have a value.
Yes, absolutely.
So, for the Dutch audience there that are looking at these redemption centers, all I would say to each and every one of you, forget about the outside, just work on the inside. Work on your and the trouble is when you start working on your inside, like with me, I've given up alcohol, I've given up smoking. 4 years ago I gave up taking drugs. And just when you think, well, I've done well, I've 6 months without a drink and a cigarette, you think, well, there's other things that I've got to do to be right, to be in the right place. Because you start realizing the bar was higher than you thought originally. There are certain things that you have to do. And God just guides you on those. And he's not rushing you. He doesn't say you have to do it all tomorrow. You just do it in the right time, and he'll guide you on the right time. Yeah. And for me, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, it is. When we were in Spain, you talked about Gesara, and that you believe that this year it will happen. Or we're not going to say dates or whatever, because it's even for me as a psychic medium, it's very hard to predict anything because there's so much noise in the ether, and of course my higher self or my guides can tell me things, but sometimes it's like, who's talking? it's there's so much noise, and I think they do that on purpose. That the Cabal, how they do it, I don't know, but they do it on purpose. So it's difficult for us to predict the exact things.
Yeah, it is. I'm doing a show tomorrow, funny enough, about Nasara Jasara.
Okay.
With a round table of 7 people. And I put a presentation together because there are 2 different Jasaras out there, a good one and a bad one.
Yeah.
It's important people see the difference.
Okay. Tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm doing it tomorrow.
Is there anything you can say?
Well, let me just share this, because I've shared this with my. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see your screen.
Which Nasara are you wanting?
Hey, don't be confused.
So you got the good one, which is the National Economic Stabilization and Reformation
Act. Yeah.
Reformation Act, and you've got the Deep State and the Cabal's one, which is the National Economic Security and Recovery Act. And then I go through each and every part. What's the difference?
Yeah.
And the good one forgets all credit card, mortgage, student loan and bank debt due to illegal banking, and you'll become sovereign and free. Finally, the bad one forgives all debt, but you become a slave and do what they demand, or they will stop you or eliminate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need my glasses on to even read
that. So do I.
So what's your choice? It goes through all the different things. Your choice is you become, if on the positive side, you become debt-free and sovereign and embrace your divinity. A sovereign individual people can freely choose to do what they want and live free outside of the debt of their slavery agenda, imposed with limited income and access to needed resources, as cost requiring debt by I can't
do it. It's too small for me as well.
Yeah, is
Rubens.
It's best for the people. To have the ability to ignore the negative messaging and social conditioning that comes from desiring things beyond affordability and structured pricing to enslave people, such as loans, obviously.
Yeah.
Being sovereign with the power to cut off communications from social programming is the first step to freedom. Mm-hmm. That tool is a Q phone, which is designed to provide secure banking, voting, and other beneficial activities without the need of intermediaries.
Mm-hmm.
The application, as well as a 4D holographic applications, can become the basis of direct online education, new entertainment venues, movies, direct social networking without the constraints imposed by big tech. That's on the positive side. On the negative side, you become debt-free, but you become a robot controlled by the New World Order.
Yeah, you become a slave.
So you literally, and as they say, you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yeah, yeah.
I put this out in 2022, April 2022. It dismantles the IRS, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of International Settlements, along with the old cabal banking system. It ends all income tax.
Can't wait for it.
Exactly. So the choice on question 2 is you become sovereign and embrace your divinity. The IRS is an illegal collection agency.
Yeah.
The global elite that it was created to collect taxes and pay them, and not for the benefit of the United States government nor its people. No. The taxes were and have been used to pay those in control of the Federal Reserve banks and their policy. There is no need for the IRS anymore, and those who created it are no longer among the living.
I hope so.
Most of them have now been executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the negative side is you become new income tax free because you're income free, and become a robot controlled by the New World Order.
Yeah.
Do as they say, you will own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
That was their theory. There will be a flat rate of tax on brand new, non-essential new items. We believe that to be 17%. Oh, yeah, there we go. The flat rate will be sufficient. And I believe that the new rate is 17% for non-essential new items. This will fill the void for the lost revenue and correct illegal taxation against the people and the nations.
Yeah.
The New World Order will decide what is essential and should be taxed. They are 100% in control. Do not be misled.
No, we don't want that. But how are we going to, I mean, if the people will get their freedom, and it won't be overnight, but if they get their freedom and they have more money, can they deal with it? I don't believe people can deal with it.
I think you're absolutely right. And this is where you and I come in, and many, many others come in. God has already put me through on this journey already. He's put me into a world of abundance to see how I handle it. And in my world, it just means I'm way, way busier than I used to be looking after thousands of homeless people.
Yeah.
And it's not just a question of anyone can provide food, but now we're teaching them to grow stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's better.
We had a funny moment because obviously when we started growing food, I'd forgot the fact that they've got a lot of animals. Well, the animals ate the food before it had even grown properly. So we've had to spend quite a bit of money on fencing to fence off the areas where we're growing the food. So yeah, we've learned. It's been a lot of fun, but there's a lot of things that you can do to help people. There's a lot more to be done to do with the education of people, because there's a lot of people that have escaped the matrix and they've turned to drugs or alcohol, and they've jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. They haven't made their life any better. What I want people to do is improve their life, not be within the matrix, but be in control of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And give them a feeling of self-worth and get them to do something that they enjoy doing. For the last 22 years, every single day I've got up, I've enjoyed what I was doing. I retired from mainstream work 22 years ago, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I love what I do now. And I wake up every morning, my wife will tell you, probably 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. Because I love it. Yeah. Now, you don't do that if you're working on a production line. You put your alarm on snooze. I've never used my snooze button, ever. When my alarm goes off, I'm up and I'm ready to go. In fact, most of the time, I'm up and ready 2 minutes before my alarm goes off.
Yeah, your clock is...
My body clock is ready.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nasara Jasara is coming. It's already started. We're seeing the collapse of the IRS in America already. We're seeing the collapse of the central banks in Europe, in the UK, in America, the Federal Reserve already. We're seeing the collapse of it, but it's not being telegraphed. It's not being put out there. It's left to us to do that. Mainstream media are not going to tell you. It's left to us to guide you down this line, to show you where we're going.
Yeah.
And Nasara Jasara is already happening, but it's being phased in rather than flicking a switch. Here we go, boys. Here we go. It's not that way. And there's over 1 million people that have had their student loans and mortgages in many, many, many countries just disappear. And people don't want to talk about it in case they jinx it. And I get that. That makes sense.
You hardly hear anything about it.
No. Look, I haven't had a mortgage since I was 23 years old. I don't believe in them. And if I can afford it, I buy it. And if I can't afford it, I don't. I come from that school of thought. My father trained me that way. He didn't believe in pensions. He said that he'd never put any money into a pension. You work. My grandfather worked until he was 100 years old. My father is 88 and he's still working every day of his life and enjoying himself. He doesn't talk to me, but I know he's still alive. At least he was. I've phoned him up. I've spoken to him about 8 times in 30 odd years, 42 years. I phoned him up at the start of this, and he was championing the idea of being vaccinated. And I was like, wow, that just tells me so much about you. But the trouble is, at 88 years old, there's not an awful lot you can do to change them. And all I do is just pray to God that God will save his soul.
Yeah, I think he will.
I think he will too, because I think my father was a good man, but he's just been led down this particular line. the people who run it at the top are the people that are wrong. But that's happened the same with the Roman Catholic Church and many other different churches.
Ages and ages, yeah.
Ages and ages. But I will say on that particular issue, I had some very good inside information. There are certain churches, and I'm not going to mention their names, that are progressive and coming into a world of abundance. And there's certain ones that are going to go the opposite way. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That have not dealt with child trafficking and paedophilia when they should have done. And they're not going the right way. But for those that are going the right way, it's going to be interesting. And for those that are going the wrong way, it's going to be painful. And it always is. It was painful for me in 1983 when I left and found that I had been misled. Very painful.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Well, I hope those churches that stay can teach the people about the spiritual side and not about the religion. I mean, religion is something that was, I don't know, it was forced on everybody for ages and ages. I don't know for how long, but they and I also think from the Bible they removed spiritual things because they don't want us to know. So I really hope that if the good churches that they stay, that they will switch not only telling the religious things, maybe the good religious things, but to really switch to the spiritual side of who we are and that we are a soul and everything that no one ever told us at school, that we need to be told now.
Mm-hmm.
Who we are, that everything is frequency, how powerful we are, how you can manipulate energy, but then in a good way.
Mm-hmm. And people need to work on their frequency right now because what will happen is if you don't work on your frequency, and if you're in a relationship, husband and wife need to work on their frequency together. Otherwise, you will land up breaking up. Yeah. Because if somebody's frequency is high and yours is low, then a person with a low frequency will just slip away, and it's sad. Mm. That's sad, but it comes down to you. It comes down to you working on your frequency. The person on a higher frequency is not there to will encourage you for sure. Will try and encourage you for sure. But this is not a job that you do for somebody else. This is a job you have to do for yourself.
It is an inside job.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm here on Earth. Mm-hmm. To help people, to educate people, to teach them who they are.
Yeah.
So they can experience themselves who they are and how magically powerful they are.
Yeah.
To see life as it really is and not as we see it, because I truly believe that how we look at the world is like you look at a movie. Mm-hmm. We're all playing our parts here. I'm playing my part, you play your part. You're the main character in your movie, I'm the main character in my movie. You're part of my movie and I'm part of your movie, and we're also the director of our own movie. And if you start to see that, it does something with you. You know, you have to make the switch in your mind to have a different mindset and then feel who you are and feel what you can do. It's difficult to explain in English, but I guess you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I understand 100%. And the important thing from what you've just said there is that each person takes responsibility for themselves and don't depend on other people. Yeah. And there's too many people in this world who have become dependent on the government, on big pharma, on big tech. The amount of people 3 years ago that were dependent on Facebook, dependent on Instagram, dependent on Twitter, dependent on YouTube. I was one of them. So I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Until they took it away from me. And then I decided to set up my own thing and not be dependent on somebody else.
That's better.
And it was the best thing I ever did. And there are people out there that said that what I've done is impossible. Well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I've done it. Yeah. And it's very interesting because I have a lot of people who challenge and they go, well, I don't believe that you've got 27 million followers. I said, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? We know the figures behind the scenes. The reality is when I go to America, where my largest part of the audience is, I get recognized everywhere I go. I don't in Spain, which is a lovely place to live. Nobody knows who I am because I don't speak Spanish. And that's totally my fault. And I wish I did because I'd love to work more with the Spanish.
It's nice.
Yeah, I wish I had. But in America, we were obviously in Nashville, everybody recognized you at the airport and everywhere else. But when we were in New York, I got recognized 6 times in New York, once in the hotel by by a medical lady. And that's how you tell you've got a significant following.
Yeah.
And if you go use the Wayback Machine on our old website, where we had a counter for those people that were following, that surpassed 18.5 million people. And that was before we took down that website and moved across to the new one. And we brought everybody across with us. And the numbers took 2 months to come across the 18 odd million. And it's now up at 27 million, has been for a few weeks now.
Wow.
So we know the audience is out there, and yet because it's not on YouTube, because it's not on the other media, people question the validity of it.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating journey. It's been very challenging to try and establish what is the truth. You and I talked about it beforehand as to what is true and what is not true. And there is only one way to find out what is true, and that's not by going to Google or Siri or Alexa. That's by going within. And women have always been better at it than men. Going within and understanding women can tell you immediately whether a guy is full of shit or telling the truth.
You can feel it if somebody's lying or, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. My wife can tell you without even listening to you, just by walking past you, by frequency.
Yeah, because that's all we are. We are frequency.
Yeah.
If you start to see it in that way, you start to understand it. Yeah.
Exactly. And we are. And it's very important for people on this journey to detach religion from spirituality.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
I used to think they were the same thing, and they are not.
No, absolutely not the same. It's two totally different things. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, what I wanted to say is that for me, healing in the future will always be through frequencies. I say that for a lot of years now.
Yeah.
So that's why I work with frequencies, and everybody still hoping that the medbeds will come.
Well, they're already rolled out. They're just not available to the public as yet for specific reasons, and that'll all become clear in time. But at the moment, there's certain things that have to be done first, and when they are done, then they will be rolled out. And the one thing I can assure the audience here is God is not running late. He is bang on time.
Yeah, he is. Thank you.
Well, Mary, it's great to see you.
Absolutely. Likewise.
And you look after yourself, and I will see you again very, very soon.
I think so. And if I'm in Spain, we're going to play golf again.
Definitely. I'm going to play golf next week, actually, in Dubai. I'm in Dubai next week.
Oh, well, what is it? It's February. Yeah, that's okay.
It's 30 degrees there, so it's
lovely. In April, May, or later, you won't be happy to play golf.
I would. Do you know, I played in 48 degrees before. It was hot, but I enjoyed it. Because the ball went further.
Only 9 holes, I guess.
No, 18.
18, my goodness.
Yeah. I had a buggy, though.
Yeah, otherwise it's,
I couldn't have walked it.
No,
all right.
Well, thank you very much for your time. And
no problem.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.